Shorting Palantir stock. Yes, Palantir stock. Chris Patel saw this on X a few hours ago. He says added more to the Palantir short. So he's betting against Palantir. Seems like he's been betting against it recently. And he's continued to kind of add on here. Okay, so we'll speak about that. We'll speak about if Palantir is an attractive short or not. And I'll kind of share my opinions and perspectives in regards to that. Then I got a couple of videos I want to react to. One's Tom Lee. He went on CNBC a couple hours ago, spoke about small caps, spoke about the state of the market. Looking forward to reacting to that one, sharing my opinions and perspectives. And last one up here, 3-stock lunch, Goldman Sachs, Super Micro, Ulta Beauty. Looking forward to reacting to that one. Appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed. New all-time high subscribers in the History Channel. Appreciate each and every one of you, especially you guys that are in the smash the thumbs up squad. Okay. All right, guys. So in regards to Palantir, let me say the positive part about trying to bet against Palantir, and then we'll go negative, okay? So if you're going to bet against Palantir, the good thing you have for you is Palantir trades at a very high trailing 12-month PE, forward PE, even if you want to go a 2-year forward PE, right? All those metrics are way above where an average stock trades at in the market. Now, Palantir does have growth exceeding an average stock in the stock market, so do keep that in mind. They're also seen as people kind of put Palantir more into like a SaaS category, and SaaS stocks usually trade at the highest multiples you're pretty much find in the market. And it's because these business models are generally very sticky. They lock in big corporate customers for years, sometimes even decades to go in the future. So keep that in mind, but I understand from the point of valuation. The problem is if you listen to any experienced, really short seller ever in history, you can never short just because of valuation. It has to be valuation plus there's really a deterioration in the business model about to happen. That's the only reason you can really ever make really good money in regards to a short position, right? So for instance, I had a short that did really well. Well, I call it a hedge. It's, because I'm kind of looking at it not from necessarily making money. I'm just kind of looking at it from like hedging a portfolio, giving some protection and downside. And something I had late last year into early this year was Tesla, right? Where I was long Tesla, but I also had a put position on Tesla. And that went actually very well, but that's because Tesla's business model was deteriorating at that time, right? And so it made sense. So with Palantir, here's why it's not a very good short, okay? One is the business model deteriorating? No. So you're not going to have that to go off of right off the bat. So that's already trouble. You're already in trouble if you're not getting deterioration in the business model. Second, is a business model on an uptrend or a downtrend? Well, the business model is clearly on an uptrend, and if anything, it might get on more of an uptrend over the remainder of this year as far as growth rates, as far as EPS, all those sorts of things, right? Things are all trending in the right way. Next up, we can think, are there any potential catalysts that could really screw things up if you're going short the stock? There's a huge one, and that is potential S&P 500 inclusion, right? Palantir's market cap's now over $60 billion. Company's obviously very profitable. They've been in the market for many years now at this point in time. It honestly looks like they're primed to get into the S&P 500. So it's not a guarantee they get in the S&P 500, but I would say there's a decent probability. And we do know that likely when that announcement comes, the stock will move up even more, because once you get into the S&P 500, basically funds are forced to buy you, okay? And so there's going to be a massive amount of forced buying. And if Palantir went in at a $60 billion or $70 billion market cap, it's actually a fairly big market cap. It's not something crazy like a $500 billion or something like when Tesla went in, but it's still a big number. So it would be a flood of money that would come in before it went into the S&P 500 and after it went into the S&P 500, right? So not super attractive as far as that goes. Also, we got to keep in mind Palantir is pretty much a direct play on AI and that whole movement, right? And so likely their business is going to continue to uptrend in regards to their fundamentals. Next thing you have working against you, okay, Chris, if you're going to see this video, man, you've got a lot of things working against you here, right? I'll be honest, Chris, if you make money on this, you're lucky, because there's straight luck. There's no skill involved here, man. This is like, going to play the roulette wheel at this point in time, okay? Next part is, we know Wall Street's desperate looking for the next AI plays. And so they're really, this is kind of, if you listen to all these Wall Streeters talk over the last couple months, they're looking for these kind of like downstream companies, these like, what's the next thing? Because everybody knows about Nvidia. Everybody and their grandma knows about Nvidia, right? Direct AI play. But everybody's now focused on what's after Nvidia, right? And so that's where companies like Palantir come up. You have somebody like a Dan Ives who's talking up Palantir left and right? More and more of these Wall Streeters getting on board in regards to stock. Then additionally, you have a very stubborn shareholder base because we know a decent amount of Palantir shareholders are retail, and these folks don't care if Palantir growth rate comes in next quarter 21 or 22 or 23 or 24 or 25%, right? There's a lot of people kind of figuring like this quarter should be good, maybe 24, 25% growth, maybe even the following quarter we see another acceleration up rate. But let's say it comes in at 21%, or all the retail bulls around Palantir are going to say, oh gosh, we're selling out of Palantir. No, of course not. These folks have been through a lot tougher times than if the growth rate came into 21 or 22%, right? So this makes it very, very difficult. Now, interest income. You might say, okay, if the Fed starts lowering interest rates, well, eventually the interest income is not going to be as much. True. That's true, right? But how long until that happens? Treasuries are still going to be yielding a lot. High treasury yields for at least probably 12 months, right? Unless the economy completely falls off the rails and the Fed has to immediately lower rates to zero or something like that, which is always a possibility. Outside of that sort of scenario, Palantir is going to continue to bank money on treasuries for probably the next 18 to 24 months, right? Because a lot of treasuries will probably lock up 3 months out, 6 months out, maybe even 12-month out treasuries, right? So the interest income is going to keep pouring in for this company for, I would say, a minimum of a year, but probably closer to a year and a half to 2 years, right? And that's almost a guarantee. So interest income is going to keep pouring in. The balance sheet we know is in a phenomenal state, so you don't have any problems as far as that goes, right? Alex Karp seems very determined to continue to lead this company. It seems like the CFO's locked in, so I don't think you're going to get any shocking change in regards to that, where all of a sudden, Karp's leaving the company or something like that. So you don't have that to go off of also. So this makes it very difficult to really bet against Palantir stock. I think there's a lot of stocks that are easier to bet against. I think you might want to consider Chipotle, right? Chipotle. Well, think about Chipotle for a minute, right? We have a very high valuation in regards to Chipotle. We have a consumer slowdown, which could mean a pullback on Chipotle, right? We also have a dynamic that's playing out where there could actually be the fundamentals deteriorating. It's gone viral all over the internet for the last month or two about Chipotle skimping. It's been a very bad look for their brand, very bad look for their name. So if you want to look for some sort of opportunity and something that's maybe overvalued, I think Chipotle is very interesting. It's already started to fall. The stock's down about 15% in the past, I think, month or so, right? But that one could have a lot further to fall in regards to that, right? And is it at the sort of valuation, let's say, Palantir's at here? By the way, this is 1000xstocks.com. If you want to apply for access in regards to 1000x, you can literally go to 1000xstocks.com, right? 12-month price to sales ratio 7.6 on this baby. P ratio 64. Forward price to sales ratio 6.7. Remember, this is a restaurant chain we're talking about, right? And their growth has been certainly great over the years, but keep in mind, look at like Cheesecake Factory, 0.57, right? And remember, Cheesecake Factory is a lot more than just Cheesecake Factory. They also have several new concepts of essentially they're rolling out that have insane growth expansion, like 10x growth expansion over the coming years as far as the amount of locations they have and those sorts of things, right? And so I don't know, that's just something to keep in mind. Like if you're looking for opportunities, I think there's other opportunities out there. I think Palantir's a tough one. I think you need a lot of luck in regards to this one to really make any substantial money on this one. Now, could Palantir go from 28 to 26? Sure. But is it even worth messing around with, right? I don't know. Could Palantir go from 28 to 27? Sure. But is it worth messing around with? Like, if you want to bet against a stock, I feel like you've got to think minimum 30% downside. That's how I would think about it. Like minimum 30% downside. If you can't see at least 30% downside, is it really worth it, right? Is it really worth it? So I don't know. That's just a little food for thought in regards to that one. I think it's a tough one to bet against at this point in time. Yeah, that's where I'll leave it in regards to that, okay? Alrighty, next one up here. Tom Lee is bullish on small caps.
A nice bounce as well, with Bitcoin climbing nearly 6%.
Now, real quick here, if you haven't been keeping track of the Tom Lee small cap story so far this year, let's be very crystal clear about this. Tom Lee went into 2024 calling for something like he was talking about 50-60% rally in small cap stocks. If you were watching the reaction channel, earlier this year and at the end of the 2023, he was making these calls, right? And to be quite frank, the small cap stocks haven't done a dang thing until last week. Last week, we got a massive change in the market. What is that substantial change in the market? Well, there's a belief now in the market that folks know where rates are going, right? Everybody's kind of come to the assumption that the Fed's going to start lowering rates likely in September, or at the latest November, but likely September, right? And that's going to start the cut cycle officially. And so if they start a cut in September, we could get another one in November. We get another one maybe in January, something toward the beginning of the year, right? And boom, 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 you got the cut cycle going on, right? And outside of a complete massive recession, it will be like an orderly cut cycle. If there's a big recession, obviously they'll go to 1% or zero very, very quickly, right? So he made that call. Smalls hadn't done dang thing, but they're starting to do something. And so here he is on CNBC talking about small caps.
In FundStrat, head of research, Tom Lee. Tom, always good to see you. So we've got to start with the big picture, including politics. Fortunately, former President Trump was not significantly injured in this assassination attempt over the weekend. But just talking about the impact on investments as well of this overall environment. If President Trump were to win, you say it would be positive for Bitcoin and for cyclicals and commercial REITs. But I'm curious, why negative energy and healthcare?
Thank you, John. I think the reason it's negative for energy is somewhat counterintuitive, but President Trump is favorable for drilling, and he'd want to expand where we look for oil, but that would put downside pressure on oil prices. So that's why we think it would actually ultimately be negative for energy stocks. And for healthcare, I think it has a lot to do with, potentially repealing Obamacare, but also just the fact that pharmaceutical companies and their pricing, I think, would come under a lot more scrutiny as well.
Okay. Now, I got to ask about your small cap call. I think you said a few months ago that small caps could rise 50%. We saw at the end of last week some interesting rotation into small caps. How much further in 24 can they run?
He better say a whole lot.
I think the rally that started last week for small caps is going to be larger than the October to December rally of last year. That was over 8 weeks, almost a 30% gain. The Russell 2000.
Okay, big call there. Small cap stocks can gain as much as 50% in 2024. Low June CPI gives green light for rally to continue. Rally could exceed last year's October through December 27% gain. Wow, big call, big call.
This time we have a larger short position by institutions. We have small caps even more oversold, and valuations, whether you look at median PE, which is now at 10 times 2025 earnings, even lower. So we think that this move could be something like 10 weeks and as much as 40%. So I think it is just starting. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the June CPI was so astonishingly soft. I think it's giving the green light for small caps to rally finally, because the Fed will, ultimately cut, hopefully by September.
And how much do you expect the S&P to potentially rise over that same 10 weeks?
That's a good question. I think July, our base case remains that July should be good for the S&P 500. So, something like 57, maybe even close to 5,800 in July. But I think that August is really going to be one where the rotation becomes more evident, and I think it's going to be a stronger small cap and maybe flat to slightly down for the S&P.
Okay, and so that's what I was getting at is how strong can the small cap, say the Russell 2000 as a proxy, be versus the S&P 500? And you're saying after July, you actually think that there's going to be a significant outperformance.
Originally I was thinking the Fed would start cutting when they had seen 2 straight months of CPI in the twos. So that could be anything in the twos, 2.9, 2.8, 2.7, whatever. I thought they would cut after that. But I will say it seems, kind of hearing their commentary, it seems like they're running out of patience. So it is very possible that they could cut still in the threes, which is interesting. It just seems like they're running out of patience. Now, there is still time between now and September for more CPI. Maybe we'd get something in the twos. So that's possible.
Small caps versus that index.
Yes, and that's kind of what happened in that October to December rally. That, as you know, the large caps actually really sputtered in late December and early January because of that rotation into small caps. And I think, again, because the positioning is even more short relative to large caps, that it could be an even more sizable move.
Yeah, so, I've been bullish on small caps for quite some time. So we've been waiting for this these babies to really roll in a substantial way. But let's be very clear, they have started to make a move here, right? So if we pull up a 5-day on SoFi, 17% in the past 5 trading days. Honest is at double digits in the past 5 days. Revolve stocks at about 10% in the past 5 trading days, right? Cake is a little smaller gain there. That's like 2% in the past 5 trading days. And so, yeah, definitely a lot of these smaller cap stocks are doing tremendous. However, on the other side, you look at a lot of the big dogs, right? A lot of the big techs. Those ones are not doing quite as well. Where's my big tech list? There we are. Oh wow, Tesla lost a lot of gains. Tesla was up over 4% in the trading session, right? And lost some gains. So Nvidia is obviously down on a 5-day. Metastock's been hurt a lot in the past 5 days. That one's, geez, man, oh man, that's kind of vicious, right? Netflix, I don't think's done much in the last. Actually, I take that back. And by the way, Netflix does report earnings. I give a rundown of earnings on the main channel yesterday. I gave a rundown of that. So yeah, they've been hit pretty hard there. MU, obviously massive memory chip play, down 2% in the past 5 days. Google McDougal, down over 2% in the past 5 trading days. Amazon, down 3.55% in the past 5 trading days. Mr. Softy's down. So you're looking at that, right? But then we go ahead and we pull up the Russell Wilson. And look at the Russell Wilson the past 5 days. Woo-wee! 7.6% in the past 5 trading days. You got to be flipping my flapjacks. But a year to date, pull up a year to date on the Russell, 8.66%. So like I told you guys, the Russell hadn't been doing a dang thing this whole year. And so Tom Lee's call just not looking very good, but now it has life. Let's be very crystal clear about that. It has life. Now, do I think the Russell can keep rolling? Do I think this momentum can last? As long as we don't have any earth-shaking recessionary type news, the Russell can keep rolling. But I will say, if at some point we get a real downspell in the economy, the Russell will start to falter again, and along with the other indexes as well, by the way. But we've got to see some real economic devastation out there for the market to take it serious. I'm talking unemployment rate all of a sudden go to 4.5, 4.7, 4.9%, and there's like a major big trend up as far as unemployment rising, right? I'm talking about credit card delinquencies getting far worse than where they're at right now. Right now they're at a 10-year high, but with that being said, they're still like nothing compared to the great financial crisis or any time around then. We got to continue to see credit card delinquencies go up quite considerably. If we can get some of that stuff to play out, they'll freak a lot of people out about, the economy is going to crack here. And then all of a sudden, the cards come crumbling down, then the Russell will get hit. But, when do we get that? One question is, do we get that economic data that could really be devastating? That's a question. We'll see. The second question is, when do we get that data, if we got that data? Well, it's probably still several months away, right? Remember, all government data is backwards looking. So you might see something in the future that's 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old, right? And so that's just a little food for thought in regards to that. So it could still be quite a while. And in between that 4-month span or 6-month span or whatever, the Russell could roll 20, 30%, right? So something to just keep in mind. 3-stock lunch, Goldman Sachs, Super Micro, Ulta Beauty. Looking forward to hearing this one.
3-stock lunch, and we'll start with...
I love some stock talk. Oh, yeah.
Sachs after they beat on the top and bottom lines this morning. Here with our trades, Jeff Kilberg from KKM Financial, also a CNBC contributor. Jeff, you stick with Goldman, you ride it from here?
You do. All-time highs, Kelly. I think you made a buy or hold your position because they had a phenomenal quarter. If you look, they brought in over $3 billion. And yes...
Was this man talking in a submarine? Holy smokes. How deep under the sea are you, sir?
Optimistic sign that capital markets are returning. But look at the fixed income trading. Back in the days when I was trading in the pits in Chicago, we always took notice of what Goldman was doing in trading. They were up almost 20%, beating expectations. And their asset management was up nearly 30%. So I think it's going to make new highs. Hang on to Goldman Sachs.
Stocks.
I met a guy not that long ago. He was telling me all these crazy stories. He used to be a trader in the pit back in the day for Goldman Sachs, actually. And so, he was down there. He was down there in the pits, baby. Yeah, that's old school financial markets.
Food, still.
Super
Micro. It's had a huge run. and it's going to join the NASDAQ 100 next Monday, replacing Walgreens Boots. Jeff, what about it?
Well, Joe, nice to see your handsome face midday here. I thought you'd be on the back nine. But yeah, Supermicro down about 25% in the end of the day. I think you take some profits here. This is like a baby Nvidia. If you look at where it started the year, Joe, it was trading about $285. So to see this parabolic move, I think you take some profits. But you never want to short a name like this. You can take it out in a body bag.
Oh, all right, let's move along to the final name, which is Ulta Beauty. They've got several price target cuts last week. Oppenheimer.
Sir, with what we have going on in our country, that's not a good choice of words there. No.
Moved it from its top pick list. This had been one of the second.
By the way, Supermicro, that's a crazy one, man. I think that one has some insane P ratio on it. Let's see, Supermicro computer. No, it doesn't actually. Trailing 12 month of 49, that's not bad. I mean, you look at Nvidia, that's wild. You know, Nvidia's at a trailing 12 month of 74. What? I'd be flipping my flapjacks. That's actually interesting. I expected their trailing 12 month P to be something really, really crazy. Wow.
Winners of the 2010s, Jeff Kilberg. What happens to it during the 20s?
You know, it's fascinating to see it's breaking its 200-day moving average. I want to be a buyer here, though, but I want to use options to establish this exposure. I just looked at the 395 puts going out 1 month, Kelly. You can collect about $11 on that. So I think it makes sense to sell puts here versus buying it because it wants to back and fill that $375 level, but I like it. It's the best of breed, and they make a lot of money with high margins.
Oh my gosh, Ulta down another 4%? We're going to do this live. I'm going to add this to my potential buys watch list. You want to see my potential buys watch list? It's a big one, man. It's a big one. You know, and when it comes to potential buys watch list, it's like, it's a potential buy. It doesn't mean I'm for sure buying it by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like stocks I'm kind of keeping in track of, companies I like, that I'm like, might make a move on that one. But Ulta Beauty, oof. You know, down about 18-19%. I mean, for Ulta, that's no bueno. I mean, Ulta is usually a stock that just does phenomenal year after year after year. Let's see where their valuation's at here in regards to Ulta Beauty. I'm going to guess not very high as far as a forward P on this baby. See, Ulta, wow. Yeah, but keep in mind, Ulta's a retailer, so they should trade lower as far as valuation goes. Is it one of the most well-run retailers in the world? Sure. But it's a retailer. So they should trade at a little bit of a lower forward P. So, yeah, okay.
Jeff Kilberg, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, in regards to Ulta, I mean, a great company, obviously, over time. Like I said, one of the most well-run retailers. But my question is, would I rather have Ulta now or would I rather have Estee Lauder, right? And have a direct play on kind of more high-end cosmetics. I mean, I might lean a little bit more toward, if I was to start a position in either Ulta or EL, I might go EL. I like the fact that they own the brands, right? I like the fact that they don't have to compete with Amazon. Ulta has to compete with Amazon long term, right? And I just don't like that kind of setup, okay? All right, guys, appreciate you joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate y'all joining me. 1000xstocks.com. I'll put that as a pinned comment down there if you want to apply to have access to 1000xstocks.com. I'll put that as a pinned comment today, or you can go to www.1000xstocks.com. We also have conference calls on this baby. We have SEC filings now on here. We have the compare feature where you can compare 3 stocks versus each other. Ooh, it's absolutely beautiful. Much love and have a great day.